Thanks for joining us for Wichitalks 2025. Wichitalks is presented by KMUW and the Wichita Public Library. This year, we asked 10 speakers to give a presentation on the topic of breaking barriers, using 20 slides in only 5 minutes. Our MC for the evening was Felicia Rolfe of KWCH-TV.
So Audra is first, Audra Dinell. She is the founder and CEO of The Thread, applying her bold vision and action-oriented approach to transform women's confidence and leadership ability. Boomerang, who has worked in markets all across the country and returning home to Wichita in 2020. Audra is married to her high school sweetheart. Can you say that? Her high school sweetheart and the mother of 2 little boys. Welcome, Audra.
I'm Audra Dinell, a wife of nearly 15 years, mom to 2 boys, ages 8 and 6, both who are here tonight. I'm an entrepreneur, a creative, and I also have a diagnosis of ADHD. Did you know the average age of a woman who is diagnosed is 38? That's the age I was when I went into my doctor's office to ask about testing because everything in my world felt just so overwhelming. But we've all been there, right? I mean, it's 2025. Who's not overwhelmed? But this felt different. It felt constant. And while I would most often label it as burnout, it felt relentless. And it really didn't make sense as to why I kept burning out. I mean, I loved my work. I made my own hours. My husband and I had stopped at 2, and therefore we could play defense. I have lots of family support. We're healthy. Life was good. But there were little signs along the way that I had ADHD. Like when I was a kid and my mom asked me to clean my room, and I would, I promise. It's just that I got sucked into the latest issue of Cosmo Girl, and it told me I was preppy, so I had to take all of my clothes out of my closet before I could put anything back in. Sorry, Mom. Or the time in college when one of my sorority sisters shared her Adderall in the library, and I was finally able to study on a subject that was boring as hell for hours. In my 20s, I moved to Colorado and worked for a marketing agency. There I participated in an idea generation competition, and alongside my partner, I smoked the rest of the contestants, hands down. In my 30s, I took a job offer in Hawaii. At the same time, I was 6 months pregnant with our first child. But hey, impulsivity isn't always a bad thing, right? My family and I moved back to the Midwest 5 years ago. In that time, I have been able to cook up a business that I love with locations in multiple states that serve literally hundreds of women. But somehow I haven't managed to get my Kansas driver's license. ADHD is like when the GPS says, turn left, but your brain takes a scenic detour through childhood memories, a new business idea, the movie you haven't seen yet, and then it forgets where you're going altogether. Recently, one of our sons was diagnosed with ADHD as well. And after working with my family for several months, his seriously cool therapist shared in a soft but pointed way that I knew ADHD was hereditary, didn't I? Speaking of sons, there was that one time that I couldn't get the details right for the life of me, and therefore my husband chose to drive himself home from his own vasectomy. Okay, maybe that's not ADHD, maybe that's just men. Finally, when I told my team at work that I was getting tested, they not only pre-confirmed my diagnosis without a doubt before I even walked into the psychologist's office. But here's the great thing about an ADHD diagnosis, especially because we love hyperfocus. It's a brand new rabbit hole for us to dive down, and that's our zone of genius. We can also learn how to work with it. Even more so, when you have a diagnosis, you can talk about it. You can normalize it. You can help the world broaden their perspective. And let's be real, I have never met an ADHDer that doesn't love to talk. Have you? Word on the street is that we're in good company. Simone Biles, Michael Phelps, Michael Jordan, Walt Disney, Dave Pilkey, Britney Spears. Okay, Maybe it's not all good company. But you get the point. ADHDers are natural barrier breakers. We're world changers. Our brains don't follow the rules, and that's a gift. We connect dots others don't even see. This type of thinking allows for innovation, disruption, and out-of-the-box solutions. We have radical drive. Many ADHDers face years of criticism, misunderstanding, and systems that weren't built for us. And yet we persist. We build workarounds. We show up with creativity and grit. We bring the energy to change things. ADHDers are driven by interest, urgency, and passion, which means when we care about something, we're unstoppable. We're often the first to raise our hand, spark momentum, or push for change. We embrace our neurodivergency because, like our old friend Dr. Seuss says, why fit in when you were born to stand out?
Thank you, Audra. I told you they're going to be good. Thanks for that wonderful applause. Now, here's David coming up. He's next. So, and Audra and I are going to go get our driver's license together because I don't have my Candace driver's license either yet. All right, so David Akao, also known as Trainer Dave, is next. He is the owner of NPWR Training, where he helps athletes of all ages improve their strength, confidence, and performance. And as a sports performance coach, he draws from his own experience as an underdog who walked on at Coffeyville Community College, earned a football scholarship. He later earned an all-conference honors as a linebacker at Friends University, where he completed his degree in health and physical education. Let's welcome up David Akao.
After my freshman year, I knew I wanted to play college football. The problem, I had no idea how I was going to make it happen. I wasn't the biggest, I wasn't the fastest, but I was determined to find a way. By the time I finished high school, I had built a solid career. 3-year starter, team captain, all-state honorable mention. But when signing day came, nothing. No calls, no offers. So I got to work. I emailed, I texted, I called every JUCO in Kansas. And one by one, they all said no. No response, no interest. Every school turned me down, except one. Coffeyville Community College gave me a shot, but no scholarship, no guarantees. They just agreed to let me walk on. It wasn't much, but for me, it was everything. It was my chance. I showed up to fall camp as a walk-on, even though I was dead last on the depth chart. I got clowned for my linebacker stance and was constantly reminded that my teammates weren't on my side. But I didn't show up to make friends. I showed up to prove I belonged. I lifted, I ate everything in sight, I never missed a practice. Every rep, every sprint, every weight, I treated it like it mattered, because it did. Because I knew if I kept showing up, something would shift. By spring ball, I had earned a scholarship. The next season, I played in all 11 games. I transferred to Friends University, became a 2-time all-conference linebacker, and even got a shot in arena football. I kept climbing, and every step of the way, I remembered where I started. Then football ended. No more practice, no more team. The thing I had built my whole life around was gone. And for the second time, I found myself starting over. It felt familiar, but it wasn't easier. I reached out, I made connections, I tried to build something new. But again, I ran into the same thing. Ignored, rejected, overlooked. But I'd been here before. Same struggle, different field. I had to fight to prove I belonged in football. Now I had to fight again in life. That fight led me to start Empower Training. not just as a business, but as a mission. Because I know what it's like to be counted out, to be overlooked, undervalued, told you're not good enough. I built Empower for the underdogs, for the ones who don't get handed opportunities, who have to grind for every inch. The truth is, many athletes won't play at the next level. Many businesses won't make it. The odds, they're never in your favor. But that's not what decides the outcome. It's what you do when things get hard, when the progress stalls, when the doubt creeps in. Most people don't stop because they're not talented. They stop because they're tired, frustrated, burnt out. Burnout doesn't always come from doing too much. It comes from giving your all and still wondering if it's enough. But if there's one thing I've learned, success doesn't come to those who have it easy. It comes to those who keep showing up, even when they feel invisible, even when they're dead last on the depth chart. That's what Empower is about. Training the body, but also training the mindset. Building confidence through consistency. Helping athletes realize they've always had what it takes. They just needed a place to bring it out. Resilience isn't about avoiding failure. It's about responding to it, about choosing to keep going when everything says stop. The boiling point is where most people quit. But for underdogs, it's where we begin. Plenty of people start, few stay the course. But we, the underdogs, we are built for the long road. We don't need perfect conditions. We don't need a head start. We just need a chance. And when we get it, we make the most of it.
Thank you, David. Very, very inspiring. We always want to cheer for the underdog. David tells us to keep on moving and continue to reach for your dreams. Okay, next, we're just getting started, guys. Aren't these great so far? Well, Ivonne Connover has always had a passion for storytelling. She earned her master's degree in journalism from a university in Warsaw and worked in public radio and television. In 2022, she moved to New York City, met and married Carrie, a Wichita native. Well, shortly after having her son, Julian, they moved to Kansas to further their professions in 2015. Yvonne obtained a registered nurse degree, and she now enjoys working at a local hospital. Meet Ivonne Connover. Come on up, Yvonne.
Hi, everybody. My full name is Iwona Karolina Sobczak-Connover. I was born and raised in Warsaw, Poland. But now I'm American, so I go by Ivonne Connover because you all want to call me Iwona, and I don't want to. One could say it is a bit of a miracle that I'm standing in front of you. I had pneumonia at 1 month of age, but I beat it against all odds, and then I beat up my mom for leaving me in a hospital for 4 weeks. I do come from a long line of people who are really resilient. My grandmother, my grandfather, my dad, they all survived so many things, like a Spanish flu, the Great Depression, Hitler, Stalin, yada, 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 yada. They just survived so much. So I guess I had no choice but to be strong with genes like that, right? It's like that song by Elton John. I'm still standing better than I ever did. Yeah, I was always an 80s kid, can you tell? I was a little bit extra. I was listening to a lot of songs. I like to dress up. I listened to songs by Whitney Houston, Elton John, George Michael, and I really learned English from them because I would listen to their songs on repeat. You know, it wasn't a great English, but it was a start. After they lifted the martial law in 1984 in Poland, we started getting mail from Brooklyn, New York, from my mom's college friend, Anna. I was always the first to open each letter, and I was keeping the stamps for my collection. From her letters and pictures she sent, I realized how different New York, that was the picture before, and this is Warsaw. Still is kind of Warsaw. It's gray, it's brutalist, it's just no fun, so I always wanted to live where it's fun, in the Kodachrome, New York. In high school, I got to watch history happen, literally. In 1989, when Solidarity Movement won with the communists and had the first free election and the Soviet bloc broke, like the house of cards, the whole system just went down and the Iron Curtain lifted and ta-da, I went to New York. In 2002, here I am pictured with my dream city. I packed one suitcase and I moved with tourist visa and $700 in my pocket. Well, it was a dream come true, let me tell you. I started working in this bar in Soho, where I met people like Harvey Keitel, I met Chuck Close, I met Robert Frank, the photographer. And among other people, I also met this next guy. You'll see him here in a minute. This guy here, Kerry Conover, who's a Wichita native. He came to my bar with his camera on his neck, and he told me he's from Kansas, and I was like, but you don't have any accent. I thought he was from Kentucky. That's how much I knew about Kansas. I had so much fun American dreaming with my boyfriend in New York that I don't know how, but I broke the law and I became an illegal immigrant. I simply stayed my visa over. I got tired of going back and forth every 6 months to extend it. And the only solution was getting married. So it took me another 2 years to ask Kerry to marry me. But then he did, and look at us. We were the luckiest people in the world. Until 2 months later, when I found out that my mom died in Poland. And I couldn't go to her funeral because I didn't have a green card. If I went to Poland, I might have not been able to go back to New York. That was hard. I was really sad. I looked myself up. But then life is for the living, and a few years later, I had a son. This is Julian. We moved with him to Kansas, to Wichita in 2010. And I mean, he's amazing. I went to school. I couldn't find a job as a bartender in Kansas. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's my accent. I don't know. But I went to school, and I survived the pandemic as a nurse. We all did, which, you know, Lexa Pro, yay. So I do have great support, not only Lexa Pro and therapy, but also my great in-laws and my husband and my beautiful son, who's going to go to East High School next year. So life is really good in Kansas, I would say. Now back to my name, Ivona. It's from Germanic, Ivo, and it means you, and it's a tree/shrub that's pretty ugly, but very flexible and very, very strong. They used to make bows out of it, and that's my name. That's what it means. You know what else you make out of trees is paper, and then out of paper you make books. So I've been writing my memoir, and I'm hoping to publish it maybe in the next, 10 years or so. I hope. And I think, I don't know, you tell me. I think I might have a title. I'm still standing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still standing. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Ivona didn't tell us she was also a singer. And I love the pop of color on your shoes, too. Beautiful, beautiful. There you go. All right. Wasn't that awesome, guys? We're just getting started, as I told you. Okay, so next, our special speaker is Atziri Campos. Now, Atziri Campos is a passionate advocate for the Hispanic community. As a first-generation undocumented Latina, she has navigated the challenges of higher education, earning her degree from Wichita State University. Now, she currently serves as the operations coordinator at the Kansas Hispanic Education and Development Foundation and is the founder of ICT Blessing Bags. Come on up, Atziri.
Today, I want to talk about barriers. Not the physical ones we see, but the invisible walls that surround a person who lives undocumented in the United States. I was 3 years old when I was brought to this country. 3, an age when most children are still learning how to string together full sentences, and yet I somehow understood this place did not want me. I didn't know how or why, I just knew I didn't belong. Imagine being dropped into a completely different world, a stranger's home in a foreign country without your parents. It was just me, my baby sibling, and an 11-year-old uncle who had just lost his mom. That's how my journey began. I used to look up at the night sky and be amazed by the lights moving so fast overhead. Time felt strange, like days stretched into years, and while most people can't recall memories from when they were 3, I can. Not clearly, but like a soft, faded image lingered in my back of my mind. Was it traumatic? Maybe not in the way we define trauma, but it left an imprint the way I see the world. Now, as an adult, I've had deep conversations with my parents. I asked them the question that weighed on me for years. Why did you leave everything behind? Your parents, your dreams, your home. And the answer was simple yet profound. For us. For a chance at something better, for the possibility of a dream they weren't allowed to chase, but maybe, just maybe, their children could. What many people don't understand is that living undocumented is a daily act of survival. I was 5 years old when I carefully figured out where I would hide in case ICE came knocking. Every night, I'd run through the same mental scene, crawl along the floor, hide my sister in the dryer, and squeeze myself on top of the washer. I was 13 when I had to rewrite that plan, not for me anymore, but for my 3 younger siblings. And I was 18 when I carefully drafted a legal document outlining plans to take custody of my sisters in case my parents were to be deported. It wasn't just paperwork, it was a plan for survival written from a place of love and fear. Imagine carrying that level of fear and responsibility before you even graduate high school. Imagine not seeing your parents until the weekend because they worked dawn to dusk just to survive. Imagine never experiencing family outings or road trips, not because we didn't want to, but because we feared being pulled over something so small as turning your blinker on 100 feet before a turn. We didn't know the rules. We couldn't get driver's license, but the consequences of a single traffic stop could tear my family apart. Imagine your children being excellent in school, smart, driven, full of dreams, but knowing that they'll have to work 1,000,000 times harder just to get a sliver of the opportunities. Imagine your child in kindergarten having to translate court documents, medical forms, parent-teacher conferences, not because they're advanced, but because no one was there to help you. That was my reality. And here's something else people don't talk about. Did you know undocumented immigrants pay taxes? Yes, all the same taxes as everybody else. But here's the catch. We don't qualify for the benefits of those taxes that help fund that. No health insurance, no financial aid, no food assistance, nothing. We're prohibited from the very systems that others depend on, yet we're still required to file taxes like any other citizen. And for those of us who have DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, the rules are even more strict. We are required to have a spotless criminal record. We must pay taxes. We must pay a renewal fee every 2 years to work legally, and we still don't qualify for federal financial aid. We are disqualified for most scholarships. We carry the weight of a temporary promise renewed again and again and again, never guaranteed. But here's the truth. We keep going. My parents endured silent struggles so I could speak loudly. They carried fear on their back so I could walk through the doors they never could enter. They broke barriers, and breaking barriers isn't always loud. Sometimes it's as quiet as staying in school when you don't qualify for aid, as painful as keeping your status a secret from your best friends, as brave as dreaming even when everything around you says no. And above all, I want to thank my parents for their sacrifice, for their love and their unwavering strength, for holding our family together through the storms, for leading the quiet resilience, and for instilling in me the values that brought me here today. Because of them, I am not just surviving. I am standing tall, using my voice and advocating for my people. So today, I stand before you not just to tell my story, but to honor every undocumented child who learned too soon what fear felt like, and every parent who gave up their own dreams so we could build ours. Because we are here, we've always been here, and we are not done breaking barriers.
Thank you, Atziri. She gave us something to think about. The word imagine, as you heard all throughout her speech. She's a strong woman. Thank you so much, Atziri. All right, our next speaker, Iris Wigley. Iris is a proud Wichita, Kansas native, and despite various barriers in her life, she is the first Black deaf person in her family to earn a master's degree. As a deaf individual, she is passionate about education, accessibility, breaking barriers, and bringing the community together. Come on up, Iris.
Good evening. My name is Iris Wigley. I am born to deaf parents, and my siblings are also deaf. I have 2 children. My oldest is also deaf. I come from a long line of deaf people, and that is a big part of who I am. We can talk a lot about barriers that people face. I have my master's in deaf ed, and I am a teacher of deaf children in the public schools, as well as I teach ASL. I want to talk about who I was as a child, and then also how far I've come. Oftentimes when we talk about barriers that people are overcoming, they're talking about one major thing. But for me, really, there are small barriers that show up in my life on a daily basis, things that people generally don't notice. For example, if I want to go through the drive-thru, there's often a sign there that says, if you need help ordering, please go to the window. But then once I go to the window, they'll say, no, I'm sorry, you're going to have to get out of the car and come inside. That really defeats the entire purpose of the drive-thru and the sign they have. An additional example I have is if I'm going to go to a doctor's appointment. Maybe I'm there on time, but the interpreter doesn't show up. So now I have a couple of options. Do I reschedule, or do I go ahead and take that appointment, but now it may go 3 times longer because perhaps the doctor and I are writing back and forth to communicate. That's a major frustration for me. If I'm going to go to the grocery store and I'm looking for something specific, I try to find an employee who can help me, and oftentimes when I'm going to ask, they walk away, and then they might come back later with somebody else, and all they had to do was read my little note on my phone. Let's say that I want to do a date night, and I want to go to the movies. Oftentimes, open captioned movies are only offered once at a specific time and a specific day. So if that doesn't work out for me, I miss out. My other option might be these glasses that have captioning on there. But oftentimes, they die in the middle of the movie. Now I've got to go to the front, get those, and then come back, and I've missed part of the movie. Technology has done a lot to improve the lives of deaf people in my own life in communicating with people in real time, like speech to text, and that's a nice thing. Video relay service is a great service now that I can use to call and make a doctor's appointment or order food, which means I don't have to depend on a hearing person to make that call for me. Another technology that we have is FaceTime, which gives me a wonderful opportunity to communicate with my family and my friends. But don't be mistaken. While it helps me navigate through these barriers of my life on a daily basis, it doesn't remove everything. And going through that on a daily basis, overcoming each one of those little barriers, can be exhausting. Now, I do try to stay positive and try to encourage myself to keep going. But there are days that it's really hard to get through the day sometimes. I do what I can to adapt and to celebrate the wins as I overcome those small things on a daily basis. One of those that I like to celebrate is when hearing people are willing to make the effort to communicate with me directly. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not sharing these stories for pity. That's not what this is about. Sometimes people will ask me, if you had a chance, don't you wish you could be hearing? And my answer is very simply no. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of being deaf, because being deaf is not the barrier. The barrier is the world around me that's created for hearing people only. I choose pride and advocacy as I navigate my day. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Iris. I don't know who put these presenters together, but aren't they so wonderful? And guys, the good thing is we're only halfway through, so we have 5 more. Yes, yes. All right, sit back and relax. We have 5 more. Okay, so our next presenter is Josh Rathbun. You may have heard of him. He is a chef. Yeah, you can give him a hand. He's a chef. He's the owner of Lati. It's located in downtown Wichita. It is a restaurant. And Chef Rathbun, a Wichita native, honed his skills across the country and the world, cooking in Denver, New York, and Chicago, even Australia. Now, he now enjoys his life here in Wichita with his wife, business partner, Andrea, and their children. Come on up, Josh.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Josh Rathbun. I'm the chef and owner of Lottie Restaurant here in Wichita, Kansas. I've been cooking for about 25 years, and I got my start here in Wichita at Watermark Books and Cafe. I've been doing that ever since, and it was really a dream come true to open Lottie this past year and a half. It's been really an amazing experience. I honed a lot of my skills in Denver, Colorado, and it's there where I learned about farm-to-table stuff, about really how to work in a high-end restaurant, and I learned a lot about myself as well. But when it came time to upgrade to be a chef, I wasn't quite ready, and my chef he gave me the idea to go overseas. So I went to Australia. My sister was living there, and I worked there for about a year on a working holiday visa. I really found a really cool job at a really fancy restaurant called Key, one of the best restaurants in the world at the time. But I also found out at this restaurant while I was there that I had kidney disease. So I flew back to America, and my cousin Brett was kind enough to donate a kidney to me. This was about in 2013. During that time, I began on dialysis, and that's where I met my wife, Andrea. So Andrea would come to all my dialysis appointments. She would sit with me while I was sick. She took care of me while I was sick, and for me, it was I think I'd found a very special person. And we spent the first probably 5 months of our relationship together just dealing with my first kidney transplant. But we fell in love, and it was just a wonderful time in my life. Here's Brett and I in the hospital after I just received my first kidney transplant. He was in the Air Force at the time and is doing great now. After that transplant, we moved back to Denver, Colorado. I had a great opportunity to work with some really talented chefs, and really found really hit my stride there. We got married during that time. We also had started our family. So I've got 2 kids. There's Charlotte and Noah. And we lived in Denver for probably about 2 years. During that, for those 2 years, we, excuse me. Where was I? So we eventually came back to Wichita. I got a great job working at the Ambassador Hotel, and I was there for about 5 years. During that time, I was in the hospital a few times with my kidney problems, but I kept fighting. I kept kind of pushing on. I had a wonderful team that always kind of backed me up. And we eventually opened Lottie in this last year. So Lottie's been, just as I said, a dream come true. And the barriers that I'm facing now are more from my COVID diagnosis. During COVID in 2020, I was diagnosed with COVID twice, and it really did a number on my kidneys. I am now listed for kidney transplant at KU Med Center in Kansas City, and I'm a dialysis patient. So I do peritoneal dialysis. Every night I go home and I hook up to a machine, and it's about 9 hours where it cycles out and cleans the toxins out of my blood. I'm currently looking for a kidney, but I really haven't let that kind of deter me from living out my dream, you know? I still go to work every day. I still find so much joy in what I do with the team that I have and the family that I have. So, you know, I'm just generally, all in all, a really happy person, but despite the barriers that I face, and you know, I have confidence that we can deal with these new barriers as well. So thanks for listening to my talk, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Did that food make you hungry? Josh didn't tell you that he named his restaurant after his daughter. He told you his daughter's name's Charlotte, and his restaurant is Lottie. That's the end part of her name, right, Josh? That's so cool. All right, so now our next speaker, Courtney Price-Dukes. Born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri, Courtney Price-Dukes has a story of resilience. Now, while her life has been filled with adversity, she continues to beat the odds growing up. Price-Dukes dealt with financial struggles, abuse, neglect, and navigating the foster care system. Instead of allowing her circumstances to hinder her, she made the decision to turn her pain into power. Welcome, Courtney Price-Dukes.
I love public speaking. No, I'm serious. I love public speaking. However, believe it or not, there was a time in my life where I felt like silence was safety. A time where my voice was stolen from me. So then how did I get here? You see, it started on September 13th, 1999. A Virgo princess was born. Me, Courtney Renee Price-Dukes. Price, the maiden name of my biological mom who struggled with drug addiction, and Dukes, the maiden name of the woman who would become my mother, Shirley Dukes. A single mother, a teacher, the woman that decided to take on one of the toughest challenges. Oh, not raising me, I was a perfect princess. Of course, I'm talking about raising my siblings. Along with myself, my mother adopted 6 of my biological siblings, 4 older brothers and 2 older sisters. The Price-Dukes name became well known, but not positively. Too many people focused on what's wrong with you instead of what happened to you. So while my brothers were getting suspended, I would cry when I missed the school bus. And what they thought was a cry for education and me just being a nerd was actually a cry for help. What they didn't know is I was being physically, emotionally, and sexually abused by a family friend that lived in the home. Silenced through choking, bribery, religious trauma of putting my hand on a Bible, and threats of harm. I was quiet until I wasn't. When I was 10 years old, I reported the years of abuse to my mom and the police. However, due to a lack of evidence, the police couldn't do anything. So, after being silenced and ignored, I thought surely the police would protect me. But due to lack of effort from multiple parties and mandating reporting in schools, I entered the foster care system. And after bouncing from multiple kinship and foster placements, I was eventually reintegrated with the Armstrong family. And as you can see, one of these things is not quite like the other. However, Despite our cultural differences, the Armstrongs made sure that I was able to keep a connection with my biological family. To assure my best interest, they leaned into the discomfort. This support from those around me is what helped me through and led me to my passion of speech and debate. As a child, after being silenced, I made the decision that I want to use my story to help people. Speech and debate gave me the tools and the platform to start that journey of talking about mental health, foster care, and adversity. I loved it, and I guess you could say I was pretty good at it too. Speaking in those classrooms would soon lead me to the TED Talk stage in 2020, where I presented my story of going through the system and my talk, the reality of foster care. In May 2021, I graduated debt-free from Wichita State University with honors. After graduation, I accepted a role as an administration rep for the university, and in my mind, my glory days of sharing my story were over. So I did the only natural thing. I joined pageantry. Yes, this queer, plus-size, dark-skinned, box-braid, rockin' black woman with a story of loss and adversity showed that tradition does not always need to be the mission. I took a hammer and I broke down every wall that was telling me I was not worthy. And through my time in pageantry, I created my platform, Fostering the Future, helping those impacted by the foster care system excel in adulthood through communication, education, mentorship, and advocacy. You see, I didn't have the best outfits or most money, but I had the grit and the heart. So though I didn't get the crown, my win comes from knowing I continue to show that no statistic, no stereotype has to define your story. I know that there are people that saw representation, and representation sparks aspiration. So speak out. I worked with Kids in the Spotlight, a nonprofit organization that helps foster youth to tell their story, to create my film, Speak. And now I continue to use my story to advocate for foster youth in my professional role as an advocate supervisor with CASA, recruiting and training volunteers in the community to advocate for the 1,400 foster youth in Sedgwick County, the highest number in Kansas. So, oh, the places I've gone and oh, the places I will continue to go. I became the person I needed as a child, from adversity to advocacy. I don't know what's next, but I know I will never be silenced. And I didn't get here alone. As the old African proverb says, it takes a village to raise a child. We're not meant to carry our burdens alone. So to my village, teachers, mentors, friends, family, thank you for making the difference. And thank you for helping me foster the future.
All right, Courtney Price-Dukes. She didn't really have to tell us that she likes to talk, did she? Because we could tell. And next time she's in the pageant, now you just have to follow her on social media. Well, whenever you decide you're going to do another one, we don't know if she's going to do another one, but she might. But when she does, I am telling you, it is beautiful. And she can speak, as you can tell. All right, thank you, Courtney. So next is Holly Terrill. She's a nonprofit leader, writer, and advocate, passionate about building stronger, more inclusive communities. With nearly 2 decades of experience in the nonprofit sector. They currently serve as executive director of Bike Walk Wichita, a lifelong optimist. They believe in the power of intentional gladness and strive to inspire others through their work, writing, and everyday interactions. Welcome, Holly.
Thank you. I'm not opposed to international gladness. That's okay too. Hello. My name is Holly, and I have ADHD. For much of my life, I didn't have the words to describe why I felt different. I just knew I was always too much, too loud, too energetic, too emotional, too forgetful. School was where I learned to outrun my brain. I became an overachiever, straight A's, perfect attendance, constant gold stars. If I could stay ahead, maybe no one would notice how it really felt. I don't think my parents even connected my persistent procrastination with ADHD. I masked hard. by hyper-organizing, overcommitting, apologizing for taking up space, I thought I was lazy or broken. It turns out I was just undiagnosed. And although my therapist advised that it isn't the kind of test that one wants to ace, getting diagnosed with ADHD as an adult was like someone handing me a missing chapter of my own story. Suddenly, my life made sense. But it wasn't just relief. It was also frustration. Frustration for the kid who thought that they weren't trying hard enough, and for the adult who still believed it. ADHD is an invisible disability, especially when you don't fit the mold. The world wanted me to be quiet, neat, and easy to define. But inside, chaos. Relentless, but beautiful chaos. I spent decades chasing neurotypical standards, productivity, focus, being normal. But breaking that cycle is where the real story begins. See, ADHD makes me creative. It makes me passionate. And it makes me me. But the world isn't built for brains like mine. There are days when I still forget appointments, I miss deadlines, I start 10 projects and maybe finish 2. I'm told that my Google Calendar often intimidates those who happen to glimpse it because I have learned to plan, sometimes over-plan my days. But it's because I strive to get it all done. But that does not make me a failure. It makes me human. It makes me resilient. And it's taught me that joy, radical, intentional joy, is my superpower. And that's why I wrote my book, Be More Pollyanna, not as a toxic positivity guide, but as a love letter to finding light, even when the world feels heavy. Choosing gladness is not naive. It's an act of defiance, especially when you live in a world that keeps telling you that you're wrong, that you're too much. ADHD shaped me, but it didn't limit me. It made me passionate, creative, and deeply curious. It's why I throw my whole heart into the things I love: writing, community, advocacy. I'm all in every time. But it also made me a community builder. I lead a nonprofit now, and every day I get to think about the barriers that we can help tear down. Because breaking barriers isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quietly choosing to show up as your whole, messy, authentic self every single day. It's choosing to break cycles, offering the kind of understanding that I didn't always have at school or work or in the community, reminding myself and others that our brains aren't broken, they're brilliant. It's finding people who see you and love you anyway. Years ago, at a comic convention, impulsivity won out. I excitedly snatched a metal Buffy the Vampire Slayer lunchbox right out of my friend Molly's hand, and I bought it right on the spot before Molly or I even knew what was happening. Thankfully, she has a sense of humor and a big heart. It's rewriting your own story. One where success isn't measured by perfection, but by joy, by connection, by how fully we live. I don't always get it right, but today I stand here as an author, a leader, a mom, a messy human with ADHD. But I choose gladness because joy is resistance. Joy is breaking barriers. And every day I choose to live loudly, fully, beautifully differently. Thank you.
Holly forgot to tell you her other superpower. She's a lefty. And we're going to continue on the lefty train because Tony's a lefty too, and I'm a lefty too. But I'm wondering why I hold the microphone in my right hand, so I'm going to see which hand Tony holds his microphone in. Okay, so now Tony Ma is next, our other lefty. He's a native Wichitan, a civic professional, and a folk musician with a mission to sustain positive connections and relationships with the community. With a background in suicide prevention, social work, and policy advocacy, Tony learns into an intersectional framework of storytelling and breaking barriers, excuse me, on what it means to be Asian American in the Midwest. Let's welcome Tony.
Hello, my name is Tony Mai, and I'm a storyteller. My memories began as a child of Vietnamese immigrants. My parents came to the U.S. at the tail end of the Vietnam War, hoping to find a beautiful bounty in which we can call home. Here are my parents, Duck, Tara, my older brother, my twin brother, Andrew, my younger sister, Pearline, and my grandma on my mother's side, Cam. From the outside looking in, we look like any other American family, perhaps because we are like any other Asian American family. This is my story, a story about indecisive identity. My brother and I, we both came out at a young age, and because of this, I began asking myself, who was I really? Who was Tony Mai when no one else was around? From the outside looking in, you may not realize the significant challenges as someone who doesn't fit in societal norms or cultural expectations like me. Tony Mai the twin, the artsy kid who was obsessed with making duct tape wallets and origami swans. Or was I Tony Mai, the grandson of a black American soldier who died during the Vietnam War? The Vietnamese community said we were too dark, too coarse-haired to be truly Vietnamese. The black community took one look at us and said we denied our African-American heritage. In grad school, I deepened my understanding of these nuances. Black, Asian, first generation, all-American cowboy. Who was I? Or what was I? People joke that stereotypes had some hidden hallmark of truth about them, but what was a stereotype for someone like me? Who I am before you today is carefully curated, a crafted conglomeration of confusion. I had no one to look up that looked like me, so I began to search. I shared my story, hoping to find those who saw me for me. Grad school did teach me new ways of looking at general grievances that I had gained from both ends of my racial identities. The racial traumas we saw in the US with white versus black, or the French colonial rule back in Vietnam. Then we had another confusing chapter called COVID. These were hard times highlighted by hateful headlines. I then turned inward, teetering between these two themes of love and pain, past and present, as above, so below. My name is Tony Mai, and all of my life, people have always told me what to do or who to be, because Asian people are very smart, but Asian men, they're not too sexy. You have to get a college education, a master's degree at that, or why don't you become a senator, because Asian people shouldn't be writing country music. Or why don't you start working out? You've always been skinny. Well, all you do is work out now. Why don't you just give yourself a break? I learned to stop submitting myself to what others saw in me, and I began to search in my soul for myself, because as they say again, as above, so below. Tony Mai, a magical musician. During a 3-year timeline in Texas, I began writing folk music. Pushing past my phobias of public perception, I found myself the protagonist of my lyrical fantasies. I didn't have to question myself anymore, or I shouldn't question singing about falling in love with a woman or falling in love with a man. I found there were other people like me who had the same conversations that I was having. It led me to understand what I truly valued. Because on one October day, I opened my phone to a phone call from my mom. My 5-foot grandma got hit while she was walking around our neighborhood. The culprit was a Vietnamese man texting while driving. I then gained closure to my confusion. I used to question, how could I honor my parents' sacrifices while I ran away from home to be a musician? I thought it was silly. I held on to shame and guilt until I remembered there was a reason for everything. There were barriers to break and stereotypes to shatter. My story did matter. I used to feel so alone. Was I Asian enough? Can I love Jesus if I came from a Buddhist household? Was my skin too dark? Does it look like I skip leg day? These questions were not for me to answer, but the question was how for me to live my life. This year, I judged the 2nd annual Mr. Vietnam pageant show, and it reminded me that the work that I started 10 years ago did matter. My life mattered. What I didn't know was how long these stories took to unravel. It was like a slow burning song, a melody that crept way beyond my lifetime. The melodies I heard in others shined bright with a harmony, and I realized I was one chorus to a much larger symphony still unraveling throughout time. I had to push past these imaginary boundaries of the loneliness, the ego that I had created in my own mind. I sought ways to challenge myself, to be bigger, bolder, brighter. Because the barriers I chose to break, it was no longer about me, because one man is no man. I'm a part of a whole. My caramel skin, the intonation of my voice, my heritage, my experiences, They all led me to be here today. My name is Tony Mai, a storyteller, a musician, a friend, a lover, a dog dad, sometimes too much of a workaholic. But I'm here today, a story of Vietnamese immigrants. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I think Tony was coming for the Best Dressed Award tonight. Like that suit, Tony. All right, our final speaker, last but not least, Krista Reed, a mother of two, a mental health clinician, a colorful woman, and someone who has battled obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, since the age of 6. She is a fierce advocate for OCD treatment and a lover of nachos, too. Krista owns and operates an OCD and anxiety clinic here in Wichita. Welcome, Krista.
First of all, everybody else, you crushed it. Proud of you guys. Hi, I'm Krista Reed, and I'm an individual who has battled obsessive compulsive disorder most of my life. Symptoms started at age 6, diagnosed at 31, and now I'm in my 40s and just able now to receive proper treatment. I'm also a fierce advocate, just like our lovely MC said, and also a therapist. And here is my story and a poem I wrote called My Acronym. OCD. You are 3 simple letters, and yet you have brought a world of emotions to me. O equals overpowered. You broke into my world at age 6, the uninvited party guest with no gift. Halloween year-round with only tricks. O equals overloaded. From my young mind had so much to carry. From sins to AIDS to death, it's all too much. My young mind was constantly scary. O equals overstimulated. A faulty fire alarm rings all day throughout. Yet I am frozen and unable to flee. I clutch into my shameful doubt. O equals outcast. Feeling different without ever knowing its birth. Misunderstood Krista, viewed as dramatic. Casting confusion on all my self-worth. O equals obedient. I seemingly followed each of the commands. Check this, avoid that. Touch this, fix that. Whatever the request was always in demand. C brought confusion. I trusted each one of your outlandish concepts. Although I was skeptic, I still felt it in my bones. I kept this all hidden, and in my room I wept. C brought craziness. You made me feel all alone in my soul. I asked, did anyone else have these thoughts? You stared while you made me dig my hole. C brought cruelty. Fearful that a death would be my fault. Telling me lies and disrupting my sleep. Tossing my brain onto the asphalt. C brought commotion. So loud that I wasn't able to hear my dad. So quick that I wasn't able to show my mom. So clever, and you caused me to feel bad. C brought crisis, one that was only visible inside my mind. No fire, no injury, no call to 911. I wanted this visibility to go blind. D birthed disappointment. Even with success, my imposter reigns. You told me that I'll always be judged. You tied me down with invisible chains. D birthed despair. For years, I believed this is how it's always going to be. Unnecessary silence rules, and for years, I didn't see how you gaslit me. D birthed defeat. Improperly diagnosed for so many years. No therapy or medicine ever did the trick. I guess this is my brain, I fear. D birthed devalue. Wearing fake confidence all day and then night. I wanted so much to get better. You made it really difficult to fight. D birthed distance. My family was clueless and I was ashamed. I kept you a secret from every person I love. I carried this burden. I carried the blame. OCD. You are 3 simple letters, and yet I am here now changing what those letters mean to me. O becomes opportunity. You tried to take so many of these away before. Now I fight you and I learn and I grow. The world is my oyster. I want to explore. C brings community. Friends and support are all near and far. I never have to explain myself when you're loud. Now nobody looks at me like I'm bizarre. D establishes discipline. I have discovered that learning is my passion. Never again will I be stagnant. Plus, I will always clearly bring the fashion. OCD. You are 3 simple letters, and yet you will never again have a tight hold over me. Thank you.
Oh, Krista brings the fashion. I'd like to see your closet, Krista. Thank you guys again for coming. Weren't all those presenters so fabulous? And we want to thank each and every one of our speakers. Audra, David, Yvonne, Atziri, Iris, Josh, Courtney, Holly, Tony, and Krista. Thank you so much. We would like for all of you to stand, please. All 10 of you. Now, not all of you guys. Well, I think what I'm seeing here, since others want to stand, get their names for next year. We're going to put you guys on the list for next year. Thank you guys once again. Such amazing stories. You guys see how we're all so different, but how we are all so special. Isn't that what you got out of tonight? So wonderful. I don't know who picked the speakers, but you guys were so fabulous. So thank you, KMUW. Thank you, Wichita Public Library, for planning tonight's program, and all of the Big Read, too, planning committee. Thank you so much. So tonight's talks have been giving us a lot to think about. As I said, we're all so different, but we're all so much alike. Didn't you see some of yourself in some of these speakers up here as well? Yes. So thank you again, everyone. And that's it. Good night.